The courtroom was silent. Cold silver walls surrounded the room. The alien leaders sat high above, looking down with emotionless eyes. In the center stood Lyra, young, scared, and proud. Her hands were bound in glowing chains. Her long, blue hair fell over her face as she lowered her head. "You disobeyed the law," the oldest alien said. "You attacked a commander." Lyra didn't answer. She only stared at the floor. She didn't regret it. That commander had hurt someone she loved. "For this," the leader continued, "you are sentenced to punishment, not death, not prison, something worse." A door opened behind her. Footsteps echoed. A man stepped in, tall, middle-aged, human. His beard was short, his clothes dusty, and his eyes confused. "This is Jack Carter," the alien said. "You are now his property, his slave, until he says otherwise." Lyra's eyes widened. A human? Her people feared humans. They were cruel, violent, heartless. She shook her head. "No. Please, not a human." The guards pushed her forward. Jack didn't speak. He looked at her, then at the leaders. "I didn't ask for this," Jack said in a calm voice. "I live alone. I don't want trouble." "She is your responsibility now," the alien said. "You may return to your planet." Lyra wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But the chains burned her wrists, and the guards forced her onto Jack's ship. The journey back was quiet. Jack sat in the pilot's seat. Lyra sat in the corner, chained, her face turned away. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She only stared at the stars outside. Jack looked at her through the mirror. He sighed. "You don't need to be afraid," he said. She didn't answer. "I'm not going to hurt you." Still no answer. He gave up and focused on flying. They landed on a quiet planet. Green forests, tall cliffs, and a small metal house standing alone. Jack opened the door and let her in. It wasn't fancy, just one room, a kitchen, a bed, and a fire heater in the corner. "You can sleep on the bed," Jack said. "I'll sleep on the floor." Lyra looked at him like he was trying to trick her. A master giving his slave a bed? She sat on the floor instead. Jack didn't argue. He just made tea and sat near the heater. The silence between them was heavy, like a wall of fear and confusion. Outside, a cold wind blew through the trees. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She stayed on the floor, eyes open. Her body was tense, ready to run. She expected him to hurt her in the dark. That's what she had been told about humans. But Jack didn't move. He snored lightly, curled in a blanket near the fire. She sat up and looked around. There were no locks, no weapons, just a calm, strange man in a quiet place. Who was this human? In the morning, Jack cooked something that smelled sweet. He placed a bowl in front of her. She didn't touch it. "It's just porridge," he said. "You need food." Lyra looked at the bowl, then back at him. She picked it up slowly and sniffed it. Then finally she took one small bite. It was good. "You're not what I expected," she said in a quiet voice. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You too." He smiled a little. Not mocking, just honest. Days passed. Jack didn't order her to work. He didn't chain her at night. He let her walk in the forest. He even gave her clothes that fit better. Still, she watched him. She didn't trust him yet. Every kind word, every gentle action. Was it a trap? One evening, as they sat near the fire again, Jack finally asked, "Why did they give you to me?" Lyra hesitated. Then she said, "I hit a commander. He hurt a child. I couldn't stay silent." Jack looked at her with respect. "You stood up for someone weaker." "They called it a crime." "Not to me," Jack said softly. That night, Lyra didn't sleep on the floor. She sat on the bed, unsure at first, but she stayed there. And for the first time, she felt something strange inside her. Not fear, not anger. Something like hope. The mornings were quiet. The nights even quieter. Lyra walked through the forest near the humans' outpost. Her soft feet barely touched the mossy ground. Birds sang in the trees and a cold breeze touched her cheeks. But her thoughts were loud. Why hadn't he ordered her to clean? To serve? To kneel? She had been told humans were monsters, slavers, predators. But Jack was just quiet. Back at the outpost, Jack was fixing a solar panel. He worked with focus, not even noticing Lyra watching him from behind a tree. She returned slowly, careful of every step. She didn't trust this place. She didn't trust him. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer afraid, just confused. When she stepped inside, the fire was lit and tea was waiting on the table. Still, they didn't speak. She sat across from him and sipped slowly. The silence between them was not cold, but it was heavy, like two people standing on opposite sides of a broken bridge. Jack looked up. "Did you sleep well?" Lyra nodded once. He gave a small nod back. That was all. Hours passed. Jack worked. Lyra stayed near the window, watching the birds. At one point, she found herself picking up a cloth and cleaning the table without being asked. She paused when she realized what she was doing. Why? Jack didn't say anything. He only gave her a passing glance. Not of a master, but like a roommate. Was this how humans treated their slaves? No. This wasn't slavery. This was something else. That night, the wind howled outside. The power went out. Darkness filled the room. The fire had burned low. Lyra froze. She had never been in full darkness with a human before. Her instincts screamed. He would use this moment to grab her, to trap her, to finally show his true face. Then, warmth. A blanket touched her shoulders. She turned quickly. Jack had wrapped her in his blanket, shivering in the cold himself. "I'll fix the heater in the morning," he said softly. She stared at him, speechless. "You'll get sick," he added, then sat down on the floor again. In that moment, Lyra felt something break inside her. A belief, a fear, a lie. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't waiting to hurt her. He was good. The next day, she watched him cook. "Why do you live alone?" she asked suddenly. Jack glanced at her, surprised. Her first question? He stirred the pot before answering. "I was a soldier. After the war, I wanted peace." "Peace?" she repeated, like it was a new word. No noise, no killing, just air and trees. She looked around the small metal house, the quiet forest, the distant stars above. "It's lonely," she whispered. Jack smiled faintly. "Lonely is better than broken." Lyra looked down at her hands. She understood that. Later that evening, she offered to help fix the heater. Jack didn't stop her. He handed her a tool. Their hands touched briefly. Her skin didn't burn. It didn't tremble. It stayed. Over the next few days, the silence between them changed. It became soft. They didn't talk much, but they shared small things. She brought him herbs from the forest. He left her extra blankets when it rained. They never mentioned slavery or commands or punishment. They just lived. And slowly Lyra began to forget the chains. One afternoon she asked, "Why didn't you reject me?" Jack was fixing a pipe. He paused, looked at her. "I tried. They didn't care. But you never used me," she said, eyes searching. As Jack sighed, "Because that's not who I am." Lyra didn't speak after that, but in her heart something bloomed, a quiet warmth, a soft crack in her armor. That night she dreamed of her home. But this time she didn't wake up crying. She woke up safe. She woke up in the human's house, and she didn't want to leave. The sky turned dark gray, and heavy clouds gathered above the forest. Jack looked up as he stacked firewood near the outpost. "Storm's coming," he said to himself. Inside the house, Lyra stood near the window. Her sharp alien eyes scanned the sky. Back on her home planet, storms were made of violet clouds and lightning that danced sideways. But here on this human planet, the sky roared like an angry beast. She didn't like it. By late afternoon, the wind was wild. Trees bent, rain poured down, and then, crack. Lightning struck the power tower. The lights inside the outpost blinked, then died. Everything went silent. Then cold. Jack grabbed a flashlight and checked the heater. "Generator's offline," he said. "We'll have to wait." He placed extra logs in the fire and lit them carefully. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself. The walls shook with thunder. Shadows danced across the room. She didn't like this feeling, this cold, this darkness. Then suddenly, a loud crash. Something hit the window. Lyra jumped back, gasping. Jack looked out. "Just a branch," he said calmly. "You okay?" She nodded fast, but her hands were shaking. "Sit near the fire," he said gently. "It's the warmest place." She didn't move at first. Then slowly she stepped closer. Jack pulled a blanket from a shelf and placed it between them on the floor. He didn't sit too close. Just enough so the warmth could reach both sides. The fire glowed orange. The rain hit the roof like drums. Still, silence. Then Lyra spoke. "You were a soldier?" Jack blinked, surprised again by her voice. She rarely asked anything. "Yes," he said. "Did you fight my people?" Jack stared into the fire. "Once." She didn't move. He continued, "But I didn't enjoy it. War teaches you to hate people you've never met." "Did you hate me?" she asked. "I didn't even know you," he said simply. Minutes passed. The wind calmed a little, but the room stayed dim. Lyra looked at her hands. "We were told humans are animals. Monsters. No, feelings." Jack chuckled softly. "Sounds like what humans say about aliens." She looked at him, really looked, for the first time. He was not young, not beautiful, not powerful, but there was something strong in him, and kind. "What happened to your family?" she asked. Jack hesitated. His fingers tightened around a mug. "They're gone," he said. "War takes more than land." Lyra's eyes softened. "I lost people too." "I'm sorry," Jack said. She looked down. "I don't know what's worse, being a slave or being alone." Jack set his mug down. "You're not a slave here." That made her heart beat faster. "But I was given to you," she whispered. "I didn't ask for that." "Then, why didn't you send me away?" Jack didn't answer immediately. He looked at the flames. "Maybe I was tired of being alone too." Something shifted in the room. Not just the storm, not just the fire. Something inside them both. Lyra moved a little closer. Not much, but it felt like a bridge had been crossed. Later that night, she woke up from a dream. The fire had turned to glowing coals. The wind was soft now. She saw Jack sleeping beside the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket. Then he shivered. The room was still cold. Lyra stood up quietly. She picked up another blanket from the chair. She stepped closer. Slowly. Unsure. Then, she gently placed the blanket over him. Jack didn't wake up, but he smiled in his sleep. Lyra stood there for a moment, then whispered something in her own language. A word that meant, safe. Lyra stood by the edge of the forest. The morning mist curled around her bare feet. She looked left, then right. No one was there. Just silence, trees, and the distant hum of birds. In her hand, she held something small. Metal. Old. Dangerous. She had found it buried under a panel near the storage shed. A broken alien transmitter. It was half dead, wires torn, but it still blinked weakly. Someone had tried to hide it long ago, and now it was hers. For days, she had said nothing. She helped Jack with food, repairs, even shared stories under the firelight. But still, a part of her heart stayed locked. A voice inside whispered, "He is kind now. But what if he changes? What if he owns you forever?" She didn't want to be a slave again. So she decided. She had to know if someone from her planet would answer. That night, while Jack was asleep, Lyra returned to the forest. She sat under a large stone, hidden from the sky. She placed the transmitter on her lap. The buttons were rusted. The screen blinked once. Then again. She entered a code, a signal frequency only high-caste aliens used. Her fingers trembled. "This is Lyra of House Veldan," she whispered into the device. "I am alive. On a human world. Come for me." Static. Then silence. She waited 5 minutes. 10. Still nothing. Back inside, she placed the device under a loose floorboard and crawled into bed. Jack didn't wake, but the guilt did. The next day was cloudy. Jack hummed while fixing a panel outside. Lyra helped him, though her hands moved slower than usual. "You okay?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Just tired." He nodded. Later, she dropped a tool and jumped when he reached to pick it up. Her body tensed like it remembered chains. Jack paused. "You don't have to be afraid of me, Lyra." "I'm not," she said too quickly. They both knew it wasn't true. That night, she went to check the transmitter again. This time it blinked. Message received. Response. Coordinates confirmed. Retrieval in 72 hours. Her heart raced. Someone was coming. But was it rescue or revenge? She had disobeyed her people, shamed her house. Was she still worth saving, or would they punish her again? 3 days. Just 3 days. She could leave. Be free. She could forget the wooden house, the warm fire, the man with quiet eyes who never asked her to bow. But her chest felt tight. Was this really what she wanted? The next morning, Jack noticed something different. Lyra was quiet again, distant. She didn't eat much, didn't look him in the eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing," she said, but her voice didn't match her face. That night, she sat near the fire while Jack prepared food. He turned to her and asked softly, "Did someone contact you?" Her eyes shot up. He knew. She stared at him, frozen. "I found the transmitter last week," he said. "I saw the dirt on your hands. I saw the panel open. I knew something was wrong." She said nothing. "I didn't stop you," Jack continued. "I wanted to see if you'd tell me." Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to cry. "I just wanted to know if someone still cared," she whispered. "I understand." "No, you don't," she snapped. "You don't know what it's like to be given away like trash." Silence filled the room. Then Jack spoke, low and steady. "I know what it's like to be forgotten, to fight for people who never say thank you, to lose everything and still wake up the next day." Lyra's anger melted into pain. She looked away. "They're coming for me." "When?" he asked. 2 days. Jack stood still. Then he nodded. "I'll help you prepare." She looked up, shocked. "You're not angry?" "No," he said. "You were never a prisoner here. You're free to go." His words struck something deep inside her. Freedom. She had dreamed of it for so long. But now that it was here, why? Did it feel like something was breaking? That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat near the fire, watching Jack as he quietly packed supplies for her journey. She thought of all the things he never did. He never shouted. Never touched her without asking. Never treated her like a slave. He had every right to control her. But instead, he gave her peace. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Why does it hurt to leave?" The wind was quiet. Too quiet. Jack stood on the roof of the outpost, watching the sky through his old soldier's binoculars. Beside him, Lyra waited with a packed bag. The stars blinked above, but something unnatural moved in the distance. A fast shadow, then two. They're early, Jack said. Lyra's heart skipped. She had expected her people to arrive with honor, order, a peaceful ship, maybe even her sister. But what she saw next made her stomach twist. A black alien dropship roared through the clouds, its lights red and sharp like eyes. It was not a ship for rescue. It was for capture. The ship landed hard, near the edge of the forest. Dust flew. The ground shook. Jack pulled Lyra behind the chimney. 3 armed aliens stepped out. Not from her noble house. Not family. Slavers. One of them held a shock rod. Another had a net gun. The third scanned the house with a cold mechanical lens. They're bounty hunters, Jack said darkly. Lyra's hands trembled. I didn't call them. I sent a message to my people, not... They must have tracked it. Jack stood up. We have to move, now. They ran down the roof, slipped through the back door, and entered the woods. Jack carried his old rifle, a human relic from the war. He hadn't used it in years, but tonight it was ready. Behind them, the outpost lit up with red beams. The slavers scanned every inch. One of them found Lyra's floorboard. Signal came from here, it growled. She's close. Jack and Lyra stopped deep in the forest, breathing hard. You should go, Jack said, handing her a small flare. Follow the river until you see my old comm tower. Light this. A nearby trader will see it. They'll get you out. What about you? I'll slow them down. No. Lyra grabbed his arm. You'll die. Jack gave a small smile. I've died before. This time I'll stay dead with honor. But Lyra shook her head. She wasn't the same girl who arrived in chains. She wasn't weak anymore. Not helpless, and Jack wasn't just her protector now, he was her friend. No, she said firmly. We fight together. The first slaver found them near the river. He raised his weapon, but Jack was faster. Bang! The alien dropped, stunned. Second came from the trees. Lyra threw a handful of powder from the fire herbs she had gathered. The alien screamed, blinded. The third slaver, the leader, roared and fired a net toward Lyra. Jack jumped in the way. The net wrapped around him, electricity crackling through his body. Jack! Lyra cried out. She grabbed a branch and struck the slaver hard. Once, twice. It fell. She rushed to Jack, pulled the net off, and held him. His body shook, but his eyes were open. I'm okay, he said weakly. They lay on the ground, panting, rain falling around them. It was over. They had won. The next morning, smoke rose from the wrecked ship. Jack had dragged the bodies away and sent a message to the local peacekeepers. They would arrive in a few days. Lyra sat beside him, bruised but silent. I guess you're free now, Jack said softly. She looked at him. I always was. He looked back, confused. You never chained me, Jack, even when you had the right. You gave me space, gave me choice. That's real freedom. Jack looked down. So, what will you do now? Lyra smiled, a real one, soft and calm. I don't want to run anymore. That night they sat together by the fire, not as slave and master, not as alien and human, but as 2 survivors, 2 hearts, 2 people who chose each other when no one else would. Morning light broke through the clouds like a gentle hand. The forest was quiet again. No footsteps, no danger, no fire. In the sky, just wind, leaves, and peace. But inside the outpost, Lyra's heart was not quiet. She sat alone near the window, watching the soft sun touch the wet grass. Her hands rested on the table, unmoving, as if she were frozen in thought. Today was the day she had to decide, stay or leave. Jack was outside repairing the roof damage from the battle. He worked slowly, carefully, just like always, but his eyes kept glancing toward the door. He hadn't asked her yet, not since the slavers, not since she saved his life. He didn't want to pressure her, because real freedom meant choosing. Later, she stepped outside and stood at the edge of the field. "Why didn't you ask me to stay?" she said without turning around. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. "Because that's not my right." Lyra was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "If I said I wanted to go, would you stop me?" Jack looked at her. "No." "And if I stayed?" "I'd be glad." His answer was simple, but it hit her like thunder. She walked into the forest, alone. She needed space, air, thought. The trees whispered as she passed. Her feet followed the path to the river, the same path she had almost used to escape. She knelt near the water and looked at her reflection. The wind was calm that day. The trees stood still as if watching. The sky above the outpost was clear and blue, not a single cloud. It was the kind of day made for something new, something beautiful. Lyra stood in front of the small mirror, in the corner of the outpost, holding her breath. Her dress wasn't made of alien silk or human luxury, just soft cloth, carefully stitched by hand. Jack's hands. The same man who once looked at her like a burden. Now, he looked at her like she was his world. She stepped outside. Jack was already waiting in the middle of the forest clearing. He wore a simple shirt, cleaned and pressed, his hair a little neater than usual. He didn't look like a soldier. Not today. He looked like a man who had found peace, and he looked at Lyra as if he still couldn't believe she chose to stay. There were no guests, no music, no long speeches or alien traditions, just two hearts, two lives, and a quiet forest as witness. The local peacekeeper who had returned to check on them stood with a smile and a small hollow device. "Do you take each other, not as master and slave, not as alien and human, but as partners?" Jack nodded without hesitation. "I do." Lyra smiled, a soft tear sliding down her cheek. "I do." The peacekeeper tapped the device. "Then by Earth and the stars beyond, I pronounce you bound in union." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Jack stepped forward and gently took her hands. "You're not the girl who arrived here in chains," he said softly. "And you're not the man who stood there, not wanting me." She whispered back. They leaned in and kissed. Not with fire, but with deep, quiet warmth. Later that evening, a small table was set outside the outpost. Jack had made stew the same way he always did. Lyra had brought alien fruit she'd found in the woods. They sat side by side, eating, laughing, remembering, and dreaming. "Do you ever wonder," Lyra said, "what they'd say? Your people, my people?" Jack smiled. "They'd probably faint." She laughed, then grew serious. "But maybe one day they'll understand. Maybe. Or maybe we'll help them understand." He nodded. "That's the idea." That night, the stars glowed brighter than before. Lyra sat near, the fire resting her head on Jack's shoulder. His arm wrapped around her gently. There were no more questions. No more fears. She wasn't owned. She wasn't saved. She was chosen, and she had chosen back. In the quiet space between worlds, an alien girl given as punishment had become something more. She had found freedom, and in the arms of a human, she had found home.